Bucky Brooks, who's if you're unaware, he's like an NFL draft analyst for NFL Network. He put out a question last week on Twitter, asking if you can guarantee Tua Tagovailoa followed the same career path of Andrew Luck, would you take it? And I said yes. I voted yes because Andrew Luck, again, while his career was short, he only played 5 full seasons. Right, he missed 2018, so he played 5 full seasons as quarterback of the Colts. He was at least elite for, I would say, 4 to 4.5 of those 5 years for the most part. Maybe closer to 4 with, he had some injuries back in 2017, so towards the tail end that kind of hurt him. But those first 3 years he came in the league, he was extremely healthy. He was a big body. He was tough to take some big hits. So the Colts offensive line was atrocious. And they did him no favors, not drafting anyone, not putting anyone in front of him to give him some sort of, even just a chance, any sort of protection. They left Andrew Luck out to dry for the first 3 or 4 years of his career. And guess what? That paid off, or paid dividends, I should say, in the last 2 or 3 years of his career. Because now it's ironic. Once the Colts actually have a great offensive line, they invest draft picks in it, develop it, and now they have easily a top 5 offensive line in all the NFL. Andrew Luck retires because those first 3 or 4 years of constant pounding, no protection, took their toll. And this is a guy who was a linebacker at quarterback. He was delivering bigger hits than you would see some linebackers deliver. So this is a guy who could take enough of the punishment, and it just got even for him to be too much to where he couldn't stay healthy, and it wasn't enough for him, and he just couldn't keep bouncing back. And this is what I'm afraid for Tua, because I look at the Dolphins situation right now. I don't see much difference between the Dolphins and the Colts in terms of when the Colts back in 2012 were taking Andrew Luck, and the Dolphins right now have a chance to take Tua at number 5 in this draft because both offensive lines were putrid, and they're not going to get any better, at least this year. So I'd be very nervous if I was a Dolphins fan to draft Tua, put him in front of that offensive line, and watch him get take a pounding for 15, 16 games, and maybe have it happen again next year. He's already brittle, and this is behind playing one of the best offensive lines in all of college football the last 2 years. And he still got injured. So what's going to happen now when he plays in front of a line that gave Ryan Fitzpatrick no protection, had him running for his life to the point where Ryan Fitzpatrick was the leading rusher of the Dolphins last year? And not because they kept calling design run plays for Ryan Fitzpatrick. It was because most of the time he'd drop back and have to scramble right away because the defense was getting pressure on him. Now, Tua is mobile. He can still do it, but he's not exactly fleet of foot. And not to mention having 2 surgeries, one on each ankle, it definitely hasn't helped him improve any speed at all. So that's why if I was the Dolphins, I would say no. I would not take the chance on drafting Tua because I would be afraid that you would get a similar situation to Andrew Luck, but even maybe less talent than Andrew Luck, if that makes sense. Because you have a guy already coming in hurt. Andrew Luck at least was able to keep up a high level of play for the first 3 or 4 years, despite taking that pounding, because he was relatively healthy and could take abuse like that. Tua can't afford to take abuse like that. That's what I'm afraid of. So if you're on Facebook, drop us a comment on Worldwide Sports Radio Network. We'll read those on the air. If you're on Twitter, if you want to check out my personal Twitter handle, Ryan_Hickey and the number 3. That's Ryan_Hickey and number 3. I put a show poll out here that will kind of reference throughout the show, and that's a simple question. Do you trust Tua Tagovailoa to stay healthy enough to be a franchise quarterback? Not for the Dolphins, not for any specific team. Just if your team, let's say, was to draft Tua, or wherever Tua goes, let's say, do you trust him to be healthy enough to be the franchise quarterback? Right now, no is leading the way, 57%, yes, 42%. So right now, more people than not agree with my thoughts. I don't trust him enough to be healthy, or I don't trust him to be healthy enough, I should say, to have his play shine and him be worth a top 10 pick. So, if not Tua, if not the Dolphins, who should draft Tua? I have 3 teams here that I think at least if the Dolphins pass on Tua, take Justin Herbert, take Jordan Love, or maybe even get crazy, take offensive lineman or the best available player, and maybe worry about drafting a quarterback next year. What teams can afford to take a chance on Tua? What teams can bring him in and at least not feed him to the wolves like the Dolphins were going to do with their poor offensive line? To me, the best team that makes the most sense right now is easy. Guess what? It's a team behind the Dolphins. It's the Chargers. They already addressed their offensive line, and it's developing and getting even better. So they traded for Trey Turner, who's a guard from the Panthers. They signed Brian Bulaga, a tackle from the Packers. So already right there, you have 2 solid pros on the offensive line coming in to anchor that offensive line. Not to mention, last year, the Chargers were bottom third in sacks allowed. So they already had pretty good protection for Phillip Rivers. And not to mention, I think this does help and is a big deal. He has a very experienced team around him. This is a team 2 years ago. The Chargers went 12-4. They beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead late in the year. That gave them a chance to win the division. And a lot of those guys are still on that team. You still have a great defense in Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa. I understand those guys will basically not have any effect on Tua because they're on the defensive side. But you still have, again, an offensive line that has legitimate, consummate pros on it that can give him a chance, especially Brian Bulaga, who's a right tackle, which Tua's a lefty. That's a big, huge addition. Usually we're always talking about left tackles. Can you get a guy to protect the blind side? Well, this with Tua, you got to remember, the offensive line now flips. The importance is on the right guard and the right tackle because he's a lefty. So we'll have his back, and that's why signing Brian Bulaga is a great, great signing, whether they're getting Tua or not. But now it just helps, bolster the argument and the case that the Chargers can afford to draft him and give him protection and have him succeed. So again, they already allowed, they're in the bottom third in sacks allowed. They have some great weapons in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. They have a great tight end in Hunter Henry, which hopefully, if you're the Chargers, you can sign to a longer-term deal, who's now just released on the franchise tag, so he'll be there for at least one more year. So you have experience around him where you can insulate Tua as best as possible to where, obviously, the injury concerns aren't going to go away. But you have a team already built to try to mitigate that as much as possible. To where if you have talent around him, if you have a nice running back in Austin Eckler, who at any point you can just dump off if the rush is getting too big or getting too close to him and have him make a play, there's pieces there that at least I think that if Tua was to go to the Chargers, he would have his best chance of staying healthy and having legitimate success. Not to mention, this is, if you listen to the show a few weeks ago, I stumped for the Chargers to sign Cam Newton. Because I think even though they had a bad year last year, they're drafting number 6, I think this team is still intact to where they can turn it around quickly and make a playoff run. I really do. Especially now this year when you add the 7th playoff team, I don't think the Chargers are all that off from competing and contending for a playoff spot. So you add now a very talented quarterback who, if you can stay at number 6 and the Dolphins bypass, you are getting a great deal just there where he, in any other draft or any other year when there's no injury concerns, he's going number 2 at the worst. You can bring in a guy that really changes your franchise around. And not to mention, the Chargers need to sell tickets. They're going to a brand new stadium with the Rams, 70,000 seats. Think about that. The Chargers couldn't even fill up their own soccer stadium with 30,000 fans. To the point where any team, no matter where they came from, where the fan base, big or small, national or local, any team that came into the Chargers stadium those 3 years in that soccer stadium made it a road game for the Chargers. Guess what? The Chargers would even sign up for that because at least the soccer stadium was sold out. At least it was filled up. Now you're going to a 70,000-seat stadium to where you maybe they will get 30,000 fans, but guess what? You're going to have 40,000 empty seats. You're going to have more seats empty than filled, and most of them are going to be filled with fans of the other team. And now the Chargers are not only competing with those other fans and California, they're competing directly with the Rams to try to bring in as many fans to their side as possible. How do you do that? One way to do it is by signing a star player to make your franchise, to be the face of your franchise. I thought Cam Newton could have been the guy because, again, similar to Tua, very injury prone, and that is the biggest question. I still think Cam Newton can play, but it's can you keep him healthy enough to play at the best level? Tua, same thing. Tua is more talented. Now at least you can make Tua the franchise face, try to sell tickets based on him, and take fans away from the Rams to put into your own seats, into your own stadium. So I think the Chargers would be of all these teams I'm listening to, the 3 teams I have, I think the best case and the best option to go to is the Chargers. Another team I think could be interesting a little bit later on, drafting number 9, is the Jaguars. They're another team that were in the bottom third. They gave the 11th least amount of sacks given up last year. So for the most part, they protected whether it was Nick Foles or Gardner Minshew. They have 7 picks in the first 4 rounds, so that means they can help stockpile talent and stockpile help, whether that's drafting an offensive lineman or 2. Obviously, similar to kind of what I was saying, at least with the Chargers, they have a base there on the offensive line that the Dolphins do not. They have a few young pieces. They have a few veterans to where at least there is some semblance there of competency on the offensive line. So you're not throwing Tua to the Wolves. You're not leaving him helpless back there. You're giving him some sort of protection and insulation to where he can have a chance to make some plays and not get killed on every play. And at least right now, I understand, They believe in Gardner Minshew. They traded Nick Foles away, who they gave a ton of money to, because they believe Gardner Minshew is the answer. I have a tough time believing right now if you ask the Dolphins or you ask the Jaguars and you give Doug Marrone some truth serum or anyone on that team some truth serum and you say, who would you want, Gardner Minshew or Tua Tagavailoa? I think the answer is going to be Tua. So if he drops, if the Chargers bypass, if they like Tyrod Taylor and they go another position, or maybe they want to draft Jordan Love, they're also concerned about the injuries, I think Tua would be nicer with the Jaguars. And finally, similar to the Raiders, there's a third team, similar to the Chargers, the Raiders I think would be an interesting pick. They allowed the least amount of quarterback hits last year. And that's part of that is the offensive line. Part of that is also John Gruden, West Coast, quick throw offense. Derek Carr had a great year. You already have a teammate there at running back in Josh Jacobs for Tua. Darren Waller was a legitimate tight end option last year. And could you imagine John Gruden and Tua Tagovailoa in Vegas? Let me tell you, man, that Tua Tagovailoa, man. That kid, the way that kid throws the football, man, let me tell you. You think he's going to take Derek Carr or Marcus Mariota over Tua? He's drooling at that possibility right now if Tua's sitting there at number 12. Not to mention, similar to the Chargers, you draft Tua, you're going to a new city with a new stadium in an area that doesn't have a pro team, where in Las Vegas, there is maybe the biggest fan is a fan of the team you put money on that week. But you need to fight for fans. And again, you're opening a new stadium. You want to bring as many people in as possible. Tua being the face of the franchise. Similar to what they did with bringing and signing or trading for Antonio Brown last year. Obviously, we know how that went. But they made that trade in part to help, Derek Carr, but also in part to be the face of the franchise, to be that guy that can market once they go to Vegas. Tua would be a great marketing piece and face of the franchise, going to Vegas, kind of getting the fans excited and giving them some hope and something to look forward to. So, worst case scenario, if you're the Raiders too, if you want to keep either Derek Carr or Marcus Mariota trade, I mean, it's safe to say, I think right now, John Gruden is desperate to get anyone under quarterback except Derek Carr. Tua to the Raiders would be very interesting. The line is there, and like I said, they have some weapons and some options to where I think Tua would succeed if he's drafted by Las Vegas.